Hi, everybody. Happy Sunday, and welcome to this very special session with our special guest, Lovette Eze. Hi, Lovette. Welcome to this webinar. We're excited to have you in the Intentional Parents Academy.
Hi to you too. Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. We are glad to have you. So, I would love you to introduce yourself. Who is Lovette Eze, and what are we going to learn today?
Okay, this is Lovett Eze, and I'm a psychologist. I'm a trained expert on cognitive related things and also a reading therapist. So I also offer all kind of therapy you can imagine. However, today we're going to be talking about your child's guaranteed success through cognitive development. We're going to be exploring areas, trying to understand the human brain, and then we'll go into problems that have been faced on an everyday basis. For instance, COVID-19, what he did for our children, learning from home, the long vacations, whenever our children are at home and then have to resume school, and that time of transitioning back to readiness to learn and all of that. So we're going to be going through, talking about a whole lot of things, and it's going to be very insightful. I also advise that if you have a question, don't forget to leave it in the comment box, and we're going to also have a session for questions and answers. Okay, thank you.
Awesome. So, you have the floor. Please take it away.
Thank you. Okay. Um, I'm going to go ahead and start this up. I'm going to go ahead and start this up. Now we're going to be looking at your child's guaranteed success through cognitive development. We're going to go through a list of things that I've organized to say. So we're going to be having a slide which I would be showing periodically and sharing with all of us. But before that, we're going to, in looking at cognition, the moment you talk about cognition, you are actually going to be referring to the human brain. That is, it's the cognition of a person, it's defining the brain of a person. We are talking about the human brain. Now, what are the things you need to know about the human brain? The human brain, it's involved in every single thing that we do on every single day. Just even something as basic as the metabolism of your body, how you move your hand, there is a part of your brain that is involved in that movement. For everything, your psychomotor skills and everything you do, you'll find out that the brain is very much involved. And very importantly for us is that we must know that the human brain works as an integrated organ. That is, the human brain would, you know, it's there is no particular part of the brain that works in isolation. Why? Because we have the neurons sending messages from one point to the other. There's a continuous interference or continuous transference of information. I step on the nail, woof, my brain, the nerves in my leg sends a message straight to my brain that, oh, I am in pain. And then once you have that information sent, you find out that you respond, you start feeling pain. Now, this transference of information takes a very short time. However, it takes like a fraction of a second. However, you begin to feel that pain the moment that happens. So that means there's a whole lot of activities that goes on in the brain at every given time. Even in learning, you'll find that there's a whole lot going on at the same time. Funny enough, it's scientifically we find that the part of the brain involved in speech is not the same involved in writing, or neither is it the same involved in processing speed and all of that. So it's now important because we want to ensure the cognitive development of our children. Then we must actually be intentional. So I'm going to talk about something I have on my list to talk about today. The learning gap that was created by the COVID-19 because of that long period of time of almost a year that our children had to learn from home. That's actually a shift in paradigm. It was a change of what they were used to. They were used to having their teachers in class, observing, instructing, following them on a personal basis, and they didn't get to have that at that period of time. One thing I know, it's whenever it's a long break and kids or children come back to school, the educators are always they have this feeling of, oh God, we have to catch up a whole lot. There's usually this need to catch up to catch up with the learning loss of that short period of time of a month or more, or 3 weeks. But at the point where it now becomes a longer time, it becomes a bit much more difficult to manage, because you find that a whole lot of children fall behind just because they couldn't find their footing being carried along. During this period, I we could observe some challenges that parents had. Some parents discovered that their children were struggling academically in ways they had no idea about. And they didn't even, some people didn't know how to address it. Why some found one way or the others, because maybe they were good in those areas of their children's weaknesses, and they were able to help their children. Another thing we're going to observe within this period is that you find out that children began to struggle focusing online. Now, the attention span of a child is actually quite limited and differs by age grade. That is, you'll find that at different age grade, a child finds it hard or easy to pay attention. You find that children at between the age of 2 to 3 to 4, we keep activities going within the space of about 30 minutes per class, per session. I believe most schools run it that way. That's actually, if you go beyond that, you find that you would not be able to hold their attention. They wouldn't participate. No. So it's very important that we understand that different focus level. Now, if you have a class, a child, the teacher is not there instructing, and the child is not physically present, you'll find that the child's focus will be dwindling. It will not be fixed. The child wouldn't be as attentive as the child ought to be. Now, for the educators, I'm sure they would have observed a few things. The difficulty in engaging children online. One of the reasons why there's such difficulties is because the environment for learning is different from the environment at home. At home, there's a comfort of I'm in my house, or I want to lie on the chair, or there's someone talking at the background, or they can see their siblings, they can see their mom. There's a shift in paradigm of the mindset they have at that particular time. But if they are in school, it's different. So many a times you find out that during that period, teachers had issues keeping the kids' attention, engaging them. You don't even know when they have actually turned off their Wi-Fi, or they turned off the video and you just can't see them and they're just hearing you. They could even be lying down. You don't know what they're doing at that time. And you find another thing that was discovered after the lockdown for educators. They found out that most children were now below the grade level. That is the academic level, or the level of academic performance expected of every child at a particular age. You find that so many had dropped. And I think observations I have from a few friends who are educators was that the drop was mainly so terrible in reading. It was so terrible in reading. And also, I think some also gave the analysis of it also being very terrible also in mathematics calculations. So those were issues that people had during that time. Now, next up, I'm just going to go ahead and say that what many schools did during this period was to try to change, add, try to make the instruction better. Many people actually thought that this was a teaching gap. So, or instruction gap. So make the instruction better, make it much more cumbersome, enrich your instructions. But in all sincerity, it's not an instruction problem when a child cannot learn at a particular time, or when a child is below or behind in performance, or even a child that is intelligent, very good, now comes to a particular subject, a particular situation, and find it difficult to adjust. It's not a teaching gap. It's not an issue of instruction. It doesn't mean that instruction is limited in any way. In all sincerity, it's going to be important that we use a different approach to learning. This is where cognitive development comes into play. This is what we call the neuroscience of learning. That is, remember when I started talking about the brain, I spoke about the neurons and how they fire around messages and send messages from one place, from one part of the brain to the other. That's exactly what is the problem. The neuroscience of learning would tell us that learning is much more on the foundation of cognitive skills. It's much more on the foundation of cognitive skills. That is, you would realize that researchers shows that the best teaching and curriculum can have surprisingly little effect when a child's cognitive and emotional readiness to learn is not adequately addressed. That is, two very important things or important parts of learning is your cognitive and emotional readiness. Your cognitive readiness will refer to a child being ready with the cognitive tools required to learn. If a child's cognitive tools or cognitive skills are not ready or properly equipped, you'll find out that learning or instructions in teaching will have surprisingly little impact. Okay, now something Cattell had a theory called the investment theory of capacity in learning. He gave a conclusion. He said that cognitive skills forms the foundation of learning. That is, he pointed out the fact that according to, okay, let me point this out also before I explain. According to the estimation done over the years, it's been said that the cognitive skills or the cognitive strength of a child accounts for 42% of learning. Now, over time, if I were to put out a poll right now and say, okay, let's do a poll quickly, and everybody should give their opinion on what is foundation for learning, you would realize that a majority will lean to the academic part of learning. Many people will talk about the formal education because we feel, oh, if you instruct a child, the child will learn. But now we are saying that if there's a pyramid or a paradigm for learning, you will find that 42% of how and why a child would learn is dependent on the child's cognitive skills. So if the child cognitive skills or cognitive tools are not ready, you will find that the child begins to struggle in school. Instruction is given the best, because I can tell you that a lot of good schools that have very good curriculum, very impressive curriculum. In that impressive curriculum, if a child's cognitive skills is not ready, you find that there is almost nothing that could be done to help the child. You will find also that in that list, after you have the cognitive skills, what comes next is emotional state, the emotional state of the child. I want to see if I could share my screen with you quickly. But while I work on that, let me continue with my explanation. Now, cognitive skills, we already have looked at that. we say that the cognitive skills is the how of learning. The academic performance or academy or formal education accounts for what a child learns. In talking about what a child learns, you are talking about the maths, the physics, the English language. You're talking about, I think, yes, the English language. You're talking about every other thing a child goes to school to learn. You're talking about a very good curriculum for the child. You're talking about everything the school is going to put in place so that knowledge can be properly impacted. Now, this is actually a part of learning. Now, if you come to the point where I was trying to buttress more, was the emotional state. Now, the emotional state is actually why I learn. Why exactly do I learn? It's very important that this is where we have the school and the parent play the major role. This is the place where we have motivation coming into place. Do you motivate your child? Do you motivate your kids? Do you make them see the reasons why they should learn? Not making it look as, oh, you must learn, but making them understand why I learn. Are they properly motivated? Another part of this is that engagement. Children like to know that you are committed to them. Children like to know that you are involved in every area, or you are involved, you are available to help them. Now, that engagement mustn't come to the point where it becomes reliance, where the child has to rely on the parent. No, it will be more of a support system. Yes, it's going to be more of a support system than the need for the parent to rely on the child rather, to rely on the parent or on his teachers. Another very important emotional state required for learning, it's going to be that self-awareness. How much of the awareness do your children have about themselves? Are they aware? Are they aware of their capacities? Are they aware of the fact that they could get better? How much, because self-awareness, I think I should attribute it to the level or the amount of positive words you are going to speak out to your children. How much do you encourage them? Because it is in the motivation and in the engagement before you talk about the self-awareness of a child. Now, when we call the next thing I'm going to talk about is self-efficacy. Now, this for me is very important because I would tell you in all sincerity that many children find it quite, difficult at times to make decisions for themselves. And this affects them even as they grow up. When a child cannot properly the child cannot determine if I want to do this or if I don't want to do this by himself, and without looking, okay, should I, okay, having to depend every time on their parents or their teachers to make decisions. I've come across children where they in therapy sessions, and I'm like, okay, why we're undergoing therapy and we're trying to also maybe read or something, and I show them something, they want to say the answer but they get held back. I had a client one time. He told me that, hope you're not going to beat me if I'm wrong. And I had to, no, I'm not doing that to you. No, why would I beat you? See, he told me that every time he's wrong he gets beaten. So this made me call the attention of the parent and the school to say, no, you can't do this. It is dwindling the child's self-confidence. It's affecting this child's confidence. So you can't be doing that. Now, so the self-efficacy would mean that the child has the capacity to make decisions for his or herself, to choose when to do something and when not to do something. Why? Because we expect that you have trained your child, or you have given you trust the child. Needs to know. Yes, that's the point I wanted to say. You train your child enough to trust your child to make their own decisions, and then you are there to also correct them. So we are going to be careful to ensure that we are not ensuring that this must be implemented, but you're there to guide and correct your children. That's actually the best thing you can do to boost their emotional state and getting them ready. School is resuming in a very short while. So this is actually going to be very important that you pay attention to motivation, that you're motivating them. Pay attention to their level of engagement, your level of your engagement to them, their engagement to what they do. Pay attention to their self-awareness. Who do they think they are? What do they think they can do? Do they see themselves as limited? If they do that, then I would advise that you actually pay attention to them and say a lot of positive things to them. Then you talk about the self-efficacy. Do they trust themselves enough to make their decisions? Do you trust them enough to make their own decisions and that they would not be wrong? Okay, that being said, I would move on now. Again, I spoke about cognitive skills, and I said it's actually accounts for 42% of what is being learned in school. Now, that 42% or learned in life, whether in school or in life, it accounts for that. Let me give an example. A child goes to school and comes back, and oh, what were you taught in school? And he's not so sure. Some kids remember for some subjects because of their engagement with that subject. They love the teacher, so they like the subject. And then for another, they are not, because they don't really like the teacher, or they are not really self-confident that they are good at that subject. So they won't remember that. So that becomes a problem. Now, that is for academics. But in the house, you give a child an instruction to do this, do this, do that. And the child comes back, Mommy, what did you say? Oh, what is this? I just told you something. Instead of that reaction, what you should observe, I also observed something while I was growing up. My mom will always be like, is that why we are sending you to school? I mean, being sent to school is they have expectations from you, or we have expectations for our children because we send them to school. Now, the truth is, the academic is the knowledge aspect of the academic aspect is not what accounts for that. It is cognitive skills that actually accounts for that. So I'm going to move on and give you a better understanding of why we're really talking about cognitive skills. We said our children should be ready with the cognitive skills tools required to learn. And we said that very importantly, in learning, we need cognitive and emotional readiness. So now look at this. If you're going to get your child cognitively ready to learn, we've talked about the emotional state, but if you're going to get your child cognitively ready to learn, what your child needs is cognitive training. Some people refer to it as brain training, but I would rather refer to it as cognitive training. This will actually involve engaging in activities designed specifically to strengthen one or more cognitive skills. That is, it's designed to strengthen a child's cognitive skills. And cognitive skills actually refer to the mental processes our brain uses to think and learn. So it's not really a difficult word. It refers to the mental process our brain uses to think and learn. Some cognitive training program focuses on individual cognitive skills, because I'm going to be talking about, or I'll be showing you about 43 cognitive skills. But some program will focus on a few of them, while others look at it comprehensively and as integrated, because the brain is an integrated organ. So it is much more necessary to look at these skills as working together. For instance, I give my child an instruction to go upstairs, get this, get that for me, and get downstairs. It's not just one aspect of the brain, or it's not one cognitive skills involved. At that period, there's about 20 cognitive skills required to perform one single task. Now, some approach to cognitive training is we have the computer-based exercises used. We have the some other good cognitive training program can be brain teasers. Using brain teasers can actually be very, very, very effective. We also have the physical movement of paper and scissors exercises. That's actually a good way to train cognitive skills. And we also have the card playing of card. We have the chess game. Those are actually very, very good games that would help your children develop their cognitive skills. So it will be very good and important to ensure that you have those things readily at home to help your children. Another game that I must tell you is actually very, very effective at developing cognitive skills is going to be the X and O. I think it's called tic-tac-toe, the game where we have I write my X and you write your O. It's actually, as little as it is very, very, very effective in developing cognitive skills. Now, what are the reasons? I'm going to move on and talk about the reasons for participating in cognitive training. Now, we said cognitive training is actually built to strengthen weak or even strong cognitive skills. Is built for that purpose. Now, cognitive training often has involvement of one's ability to learn as it is a primary purpose. That is, the primary purpose of cognitive training is to improve a person, a child, an individual, anyone's ability to learn. Because remember that cognitive skills account for 42% of your learning. Now, children and adults who struggle with learning can sometimes strengthen their cognitive skills while they continue to develop those stronger skills. I gave an example, on my page, and I explained something. I said the exact same way you need to go to the gym, to get your exercises, to jog. And the reason is to keep your body fit. It's the exact same way the human brain needs training. I think that's the simplest way I can say it. A person can be very built with, a lot of muscular strength and all of that, but you will find that person keep training. He doesn't stop training because he has that muscular strength. He actually continues training. So that means you can develop stronger skills as you also develop the weaker skills. Another reason why people also go and participate in cognitive training also is to improve their mental accuracy, their ability to manage life and school together. You know, manage life and school tasks effectively. How to juxtapose their ability, their management ability. That means life and school, put it together and make it work. Now, that's another reason why people actually participate in cognitive training. One other reason, again, I will point out is that cognitive training also can play a role in helping individuals of any age recover from acquired cognitive deficiency. That means if for any reason one has acquired any cognitive deficiency, cognitive training can be actually very effective. Such deficiency as traumatic brain injury or cognitive deficiency caused by stroke or other diseases, or even cerebral palsy. All this cognitive training actually helps. And this will be for adults, for those maybe who have had cognitive defects caused by chemotherapy. Now, another reason why cognitive skill training is important or needed will be for children, adults, people with autism, ADHD, Down syndrome, or any special learning disability. Now, that said, I'll just move on and try to, differentiate between formal education and cognitive training. What makes it different? Oh, can my child get cognitive training in school? Can my child get cognitive Can my child improve their cognitive ability in school? Okay. Now, I'm actually seeing the comment here. Okay. Now let me move on with that. Why is it different? Why can't the knowledge impacted in school bring about cognitive training? We must be able to properly differentiate formal education from cognitive training. Now, what does formal education do? Education focus on learning, but its learning experience is actually different from that which is given by the cognitive training. How? The focus of formal education is to use instructions, direct instructions. Formal education involves direct instructions. That is, I come into the classroom and on the board my teacher writes mathematics or an English language, for instance, and then we're going to be learning conjunctions. The teacher has to instructs the child, explains to the child, give instructions, okay, do this and do that, and this will be the result. When you see and, this is how you use and in a sentence. All that is how it works in formal education. But in cognitive skills or cognitive training, you can't actually instruct a child, generally, it's not even possible on using of the working memory, for instance, because that's a cognitive skill. So you can't tell a child that, oh, now, because working memory has to do with the ability of a person to manipulate an information while it is still in their mind. So you can't say, okay, manipulate this information, okay, 2 plus 2, okay, so manipulate it in your mind. You can't instruct that. That wouldn't make any sense. So generally speaking, because why can't you instruct that? All cognitive skills work on a non-conscious level. We are not conscious of when and how the cognitive skills are in operation. They are in operation at every second. As you're listening to me, all your cognitive skills are actively involved. They are they're receiving the information, they are processing it, they are storing it, they are retrieving past informations that you have, they are putting it together and helping you see it from a broader light, giving meaning to what is being said. That's your cognitive skills. So you can't instruct a person on how to use their cognitive skills. Another thing about cognitive skills is that it actually focuses on the processes our brain uses to take in, organize, store, and retrieve information. That process that your brain takes. While the academic structure, the formal education, develop academic knowledge and skills. So it will focus on a math, an English, a physics, sciences, basic science, the music. It will focus on a particular academic knowledge, which is different. What cognitive training would do is focus on how, when those informations about mathematics is coming in, how you take in that information, how you organize the information, how you store the information, and how you retrieve it when it's time to do your assignment. That's what cognitive training would do for you. So next, I'm trying to ensure I finish in about 45 minutes so that I can take any questions coming in. Now, physical and cognitive training. Let's try to separate. Let's see the similarities. Why are we comparing it to physical training? And how is it different? How is it the same? Now, physical training builds strength, speed, flexibility, and stamina for your body's capacity for physical activities. Now, just take that same description and direct it to your cognitive training. Cognitive training also strengthens stamina, coordination, and flexibility. But the difference is that instead of this being for your body, it's for your brain's capacity so that you can do mental activities. Now, another thing you're going to see again as the difference or similarity we have, Physical training focuses on the physical ability like muscle strength and your the ability, your heart rate, the cardiovascular capacity. This is actually going to be different from cognitive training. Cognitive training focuses on your cognitive processes. That your cognitive processes is to focus on how you apply reason with information, how you organize the information that come in through your brain. Now, another thing you're going to observe about physical training is that most people are familiar with physical training and exercises. One, we should, right in school, we have a class called PE class where children are expected to do exercises and all that. Now, most people are actually not familiar with cognitive training. It's not actually generally well understood. It's not properly understood. Now, another thing we're going to see is that about physical training is that physical training emerges from the concept and technique of physical therapy. That means that physiotherapy that people, it's actually the concept of physiotherapy that is translated into exercises so that it will keep you away from having those problems. Okay, I do exercises for my body because I want to keep fit, I want to be strong, I want to be able to, handle my everyday activity. I don't want to slum down one day. Now, it's those things are put into consideration into bringing about physical training. Now, this is different. Cognitive training actually stems up from speech and vision therapy, cognitive assessment, and the neuroscience of learning. All these are put into consideration in bringing about cognitive training. Now, that said, now some things you need to know about cognitive training. Cognitive training's goal is how to train skills so that they can be available in everything we do in life. That is, it's not just about the school. For every single thing you're doing, cognitive training is involved. That is, we have for example, let's say your child is, like I gave an example earlier. I give an example about school. Your child goes to school, learns a subject, your child comes back home. All these things come together to form, their cognitive skills. Now, if your child's cognitive skill is dwindling and is not strong enough, it's weak, it means that they need to be strengthened because it actually is involved in every single area of their lives. Funny enough, there are actually some cognitive skills that are involved in ensuring the emotional state of a person. So that means you will still associate the emotional state of a person to the person's cognitive skills. Also, we also will say that sometimes people confuse cognitive training for games, puzzles and all that. The difference is that cognitive training is going to take advantage of neuroscience principles in strengthening cognitive skills. Another thing about cognitive training is that cognitive training relies on the neuroplasticity of the brain. That is, the human brain actually responds to the environment. This is a biological method in which the human brain responds to his or environment. It's actually scientifically proven that for every new thing your brain learns, it affects or it changes the structure of the brain. It actually changes the structure of your brain. That means for every new information, the structure of your brain actually is changed. So it's very important that we actually see this more on that level. So that means if this is possible for your brain to be restructured, even if a child has a deficiency or a strength, it can actually be restructured. because learning capacities, they are not fixed. They can be developed. So it's on the basis of neuroplasticity that the brain can actually be developed. And that is actually one thing we look on in cognitive training. Another thing again about cognitive training, it's I would look at it from this point of view. Does cognitive training imply that my child will be very good in math? Is it teaching math? Is it teaching English? Is it teaching a particular skills? I think I use an example here about flying an airplane. No, it's not. What is going to do, for instance, in flying an airplane, there are cognitive skills required to fly an airplane. There's the visual, spatial processing, the visual span, the echomotor skills, the attention, the reaction time. All these are the skills that a pilot or a military personnel would require to fly a plane. So what cognitive skills will do for you is to improve those things so that when you are being taught how to fly a plane, it will be easy for you to acquire that knowledge, because the skills to acquire the knowledge are ready for the knowledge. That is the exact same thing that will happen in school. That's the exact same thing that will happen in school for your children. Next, I'm going to look at cognitive skills. We said earlier that cognitive skills is the mental process it takes for the brain to think and learn. Let me make it a bit more detailed to explain what I mean by think and learn. This is how learning happens. That mental process your brain uses to take in, give meaning, organize, manipulate, store, retrieve, apply, and act on information from the outside world. So that is your cognitive skills. Oh, Junior, do this for me. Well, the first thing is the brain takes in the information, it gives meaning to the information, it organizes the information, it manipulates, it stores, it retrieves the information of, I know exactly what that mommy's bag, I think is red. She always keeps it here. The instruction was to go upstairs to get it. So his mind begins to do all of this to now apply the information and act on it. And funny enough, all this happens in few seconds. It doesn't really take as much time to actually for this to happen. Now, cognitive skills include a process that helps us learn and think, solve problems, collaborate, and create. We have a model of cognitive training, or rather cognitive skills. We put it into 5 main stage of processing. We have the receptor, we have the perception, the memory, and direction. I think there's a diagram here that would give us more overview on this. Now, if you look at this diagram, you will find out that the first place of information coming in, the input stage, we have the reception. In the reception, that's where that's the initial state or stage of learning sequence. You find out a child attends to information, screen it, select and organize. This is where you choose, is this, at every minute, there is a lot of information coming into your mind. If a child is in the classroom, I want you to imagine this setting of a classroom. There's a sick partner trying to call his attention. The teacher is instructing. Someone walks into the class. There's the sound from the AC or the fan. There's the sound of a door opening. Now, all these are happening at the exact same second. No, that means the moment all this happened, what the brain does, that's an input. The brain attends to it, it screens, it selects, and it organizes the information. And after he does that, it sends it to the memory. The memory is where you compare, you connect, you store, integrate, you modify, retrieve, and it goes to the perception. This is like a web. Like I explained to you, these are different aspects of the brain. The brighter lights are the neurons sending messages from one place to the other. All this is properly placed in the part of the brain where all this activity happens. The cerebral cortex, we have the hypothalamus, the thalamus, all these activities happen right inside the brain. So when the child the place of perception is where the child is able to identify, interpret what has happened. At the point where the child is the receptor, the reception part of it, the child screens out information, chooses what he wants to focus on, what does he think is relevant and important. The moment he does that, he moves to the perception stage where he can identify, interpret, classify, and also relate the information. And then there's the place of direction. Now, that's where I'm going to focus a little bit more on that part of direction. In this place of direction, this is where I say we can actually develop emotional states. That is, if you're talking about emotional states, this direction, it involves three major cognitive skills. They are actually called the core executive function. We have in this direction, we have what we call the working memory. Working memory is a cognitive skill that has to do with manipulating information while you think about them. We have the inhibitory control. That is the part of your executive function where you actually self-regulate. The self-regulation of, should I do this? Should I, for example, where there's a cake and there's a birthday cake, should I, of someone else's birthday? Self-regulation is where, should I blow the candle of another person's birthday cake? So that's where you put a caution to yourself. And then we have cognitive flexibility under the direction. In your cognitive flexibility, this is where a child would decide to reorientate himself when the world around him changes. Let me give you a very obvious example. When your child is being instructed in school, for instance, and he comes back home and he has learned something new. Is the teachers, they taught him a particular method in school, for instance. You will find out that if you try to teach a new thing or a different method of solving that math problem, you get to have a problem with the child. This is not what they taught me. This is not correct. Some children will get to that point. Some children, the ability to take in new informations and change their mind and know that, okay, oh, these two can actually work to get me this result. So in that place, you would now need to properly, that's what we now call in the skill called cognitive flexibility. Oh, okay, so I can use this alongside this. That's where that emotional state to adjust is actually very, very important. Then finally on this, we have the thinking. This is the final stage of cognitive processing where information is sent out as this is totally this is the result of all the processes it has performed. Now, like I said, this processing is in an unconscious level. The only part of this processing that is conscious is the working memory. The moment you start thinking and manipulating, after you're done, you don't know that your mind isn't done. Your mind actually continues with that information, processing it, and then deciding, okay, let this go into the long-term memory, or we are stopping here at this point. Okay, I think we are 45 minutes into this, so I will be taking questions. And please leave your questions for me to take. If you have any questions, please leave the question on the comment box and we will be answering those questions. Okay? Okay.
Wow, this was such an expository session. Thank you. Love it. I learned a
Thank you
lot.
very much, Precious.
The most catchy statement you made was the last comment we left, which is learning capacities are not fixed. They can be developed. Like that did
Yes,
some
please.
green, green, green on my head. It's so amazing. Especially looking at it from the
Yes.
context of a teacher, right? Like my boss when
Okay.
Yologe would always shout, learning are not fixed. I think it is these cognitive
Hello, Precious. We can't actually hear you.
skills, fantastic session.
Hello. Okay. Going on. Okay. Why will wait for
Okay, so
Precious
I'm
to
back on
join us?
screen. So sorry for that. My
I'm yet.
network must have
Okay.
cut me off.
No problem. No problem.
All right, so please let's take your questions, guys. Do you have any questions? Okay, let's take your questions. All right, can you hear us now? I heard I'm seeing it. We cannot. We're not hearing you. Hi,
You
Treasure.
can't
Can you
hear
hear us
me. I
now?
can hear you.
All right, I saw it in the comment section. All right, so Lovett, I wanted to
Okay.
ask. You mentioned that there were about 42 cognitive skills, and I would love
43
if you could
actually.
list out the most 43. Thank you. I would love you to
Yes.
list out the most important of those cognitive skills that we need to identify or know
Okay.
of heart.
Okay, now in those 43 cognitive skills, we have the foundational cognitive skills. That's where we have the attention. Attention is going to be into selective attention. That point where I get to choose what exactly am I going to focus on. Am
On
I focusing on this or on that? Then we have the divided attention. Oh, I can actually split my attention between paying what do I call it? Let's say in classroom, I'm taking down the note as well as listening to my teacher. So I have
listening.
my divided
Awesome.
attention there. So we have the sustained attention, and that's for the attention. Then we have the visual processing as one of under the visual processing. You would have a list. Also, we have the visual span, you have the processing speed, we have all of that. Now that's under the foundational skills. Let me we have also, I think, under the foundational skills, we have the memory. We have the immediate memory, the long-term memory, the short-term memory. Then I think I talked about the core executive functions. That's the
Yeah,
second
you did.
level on the in the scale of cognitive skills. That's where I
Cognitive
mentioned the working
skills.
memory, the cognitive flexibility, and the inhibitory control. That point where you go to blow someone else's cake, the candle on someone else's cake. Huh, that would be a
You
bad
mentioned
thing. So that means
self-regulating.
yes, yes. So then we have the what
Awesome.
we call the executive order, the high executive order. This is the one we are actually more familiar with. As this is where we have critical thinking, reasoning. This is where we have
Logic.
problem solving. This is where we have the I think we're going to have the processing speed. All these are under the executive function. They are the higher paradigm of cognitive skills.
Awesome.
So I
Thank you
think
so much.
uh-huh.
All right, so I'd like to take this comment from Jamila before we take the questions
Okay.
from Uriel Kasali. Jamila is saying that's the
Okay.
take home for me to run with. Learning capacities are not fixed, they can be developed. Thank you. Now, Uriel
Okay.
is saying, thank you so much for this session, so educative. Please, how can one implement these in a classroom setting?
Okay, now what the role of the classroom is where we have the emotional state, because the emotional state, it's going to help you get a child cognitively ready. Your motivation, I think we talked about the motivation, we talked about the self-awareness of a
Definitely.
child, we talked about the engagement, and also the self-efficacy. So that is how you can actually help a child with their cognitive abilities. Another thing you can also do is some of these games can be, you know, I give an example of some games that help. X and O,
Yeah,
very
the
popular
X
game
and
we played
O.
while we were younger. It's very, very good for this. Your chess could actually help. And you could just, I think I'm going to share this later on Instagram, a kind of game where you just draw maybe a triangle on the board where you put in lines and you write a word, maybe interesting, and the child keeps manipulating it and reducing the amount of letters it gets to use in words.
Yeah.
At that point, you are engaging the child's cognitive
Cognitive.
skills. Okay, so
Awesome.
I think
Thank you
that's
so much.
that.
So we're going to take this
Thank you.
question from Treasure. Treasure is saying, please, in a
Okay.
home setting, how can we develop the learning capacity of a toddler?
Okay. The learning capacity of a toddler can be developed again. I would always want to point out the emotional state of a child. I had someone call me, I think yesterday, and pointed out how she feels the child is having issues speaking, and she attributed it to something the mother does. The child is saying blah 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 blah, and the mother is saying blah 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 blah. And I'm sure the mother must think that that is funny, but it's not funny. You have to communicate. You are a role model to your child. So that is a wrong thing to do. You have to use words so that your child would use words. I have a child in my house, and every single thing I say, the next day I'm waiting to hear it right back. He's going to tell me the exact same thing. So you have to use words. So that means for a toddler, okay, back to your question, I would advise to use games like building blocks. That should be able
Okay.
to help them manipulate things. Use games like building block. It's going to build that their psychomotor skills. It's going to do a lot for them. So that could actually help. And I think there are also other instructional aids like that are built for toddlers. I think I'm trying to remember one. Another thing you could do for your toddler is, point out things and tell them the name of that thing. It helps them. You're building that capacity, and that is actually very important. Okay. Any other question, please?
Awesome. Yeah, we have a lot more questions here. So one is saying, how do you
Okay.
deal with a child who is battling with forgetfulness a lot?
Wow. Okay, I've heard that a lot. Not just children, we have adults also battling with forgetfulness. I have clients like that to come in for therapy. Now, let me say something before I give this answer. Many people, once they hear mental therapy, they're like, oh, I'm not crazy. No, it doesn't mean you are crazy. Therapy is actually just a remedy, it's a systematic remedy. Now, we have this program, we call it our cognitive training program. It's a program that builds those 43 skills. And one of the things is it helps your ability to forget and helps you remember information. For example, there's one of the exercises of our program, because it's actually a software. The exercise on that program, the first instruction you will see is, for example, it says, do you always forget where you leave your shoes? Now, that means it's going to help you. That particular exercise would help in your ability to remember information. And I told you now most of the exercises we have in our software, in our it's put in a game format, but it's not for entertainment. It's actually for cognitive building. It follows the neuroscience principle. Now, what that game does for you, or that software does for you, is that for each exercise you engage in, for instance, the tic-tac-toe is also in that software. For each exercise you engage in, like I said, it's building over 20 or more cognitive skills. So I could actually advise to find a way to help your child with this forgetfulness. And again, don't be, for what you can do at home, keep repeating things without shouting. Just repeat it again. Be patient with the child. You already know that the child has issues forgetting, so be patient. Be as patient as you can be. Repeat it enough. You can give the child the advice of, okay, I've said it to you now, repeat what I say, and keep repeating it while you go. Repetition is very key in helping forgetfulness. Okay, I think.
Awesome.
Next question,
Jamila
please.
is asking the same question around what Treasure
Okay.
asks. How do you develop the cognitive skills of a toddler early?
Early. Okay. I I already advised you to get, I think they call them Montessori aids. They have the ones for toddler. I'm very sure of the building blocks, this colorful, this thing. There are some puzzles for toddler. You can use that to engage your toddler. You want to buy toys for them. You can buy them things that are going to be much more challenging to them. Would always call their attention back to it and want to, try to solve a problem. That is actually going to really help. I think I said that before, so that would
Yeah,
be very
thank
good for your
you.
toddler.
Another thing I would advise for toddlers is structured play. So along your puzzles and the building blocks, ensure your child is playing. Find motor activities. Those things really help. Play, play, play. Awesome. So let's get to the last question for the day by Tolu Olabalogun. He or she says, how does a child assimilate notes given to them in the class for subjects like basic science, social studies? I realize what my child does is cramming.
Okay. Now, I basically personally have issues with cramming. Now, one of my reasons for having issues with cramming is you forget it easily. That's one thing that actually happens. So I would advise that your child read instead of cramming it. You could read it, set out time on a timetable that, okay, I'm going to read my note. And if he keeps reading it, it will store the information will be stored in his or her brain. And at the end of the day, when it's time to write an exam, he knows it. I will give you an example. Now, I have a younger brother who is very good in web designing and all of that. He knows these things before he went into school. So if he has an examination, because it's something he practices on a daily basis, he doesn't take out a book to read for exam. He has read. He's involved in it. So at the end of the day, during exam time, he writes his exam. So I think that's the best thing. Instead of cramming, I advise that your child has get a timetable, set a timetable. The child should decide, when do I want to read this? Read on a daily basis. That will make it very easy for them instead of cramming things. So they should read often.
All right. Thank you, Toluola. I would also advise that you build your child's study skills, right? For different learners, there are different specific study skills for their learning styles. In the academy, we
Okay.
have a learning style course that shows you how you can teach your child for by the learning style, and also how you can help them learn better by their learning styles. And there are definitely study skills in that course that will help your child who is always cramming. All right, the last question. Thanks for this session. You're welcome. Informed immensely. The cognitive development schools tools. How do they come in for a classroom instructor? For example, X and O game. Some school curriculum may not be accommodated.
Okay, let me say this. The role of cognitive skills is not really, it's not the place of the school to train a child's cognitive skills. Your cognitive skills are engaged on a
I
daily
agree.
basis. It's not a place of the school's responsibility
I
is to
agree
commit to your child academic knowledge,
to
not cognitive skills. So we must be able
learn.
to properly
True.
differentiate that. All your the school is going to do, even the cognitive skills that will be engaged in schools are the ones engaged in the subject
That you
matters you're learning.
develop.
Thank
True.
you. So if they come out of school, that's different. So these are the things you can do for them at home. I like what Precious said earlier about play. Play is very important. This is a game, right? But it's engaging. Let me give an example. While we were growing up, there's this game where you use your pen to play ball or something with the paper, or use your hand to play with the paper, trying to get into the net. That's direction, and that's a cognitive skill. So all these things actually, life comes together to help you develop your
Your
cognitive skills.
cognitive
And again,
skills.
I would also say it again. If you want to involve your child in cognitive training, like you want the child to be involved in cognitive training, I advise strongly that you contact me after this, and I will be able to help you, give you advice on the best cognitive training your child can get. So I think that's it. Any other
Awesome. So I
question?
would like to, Yeah, we're done for the questions. I'd love to hinge on
Okay.
something you mentioned around it being
Okay.
the responsibility of the parents to develop these cognitive skills rather than the responsibility of the school. Now, that reminded me of the last one of the last sessions. Do you have something to say, please?
Okay, sorry. I wanted to say that I never said it's actually the responsibility of the parents. I just said that
Okay,
it can't be done in the school and the parents have a role to play.
to
That's what I'm
play.
actually saying.
Awesome, great. So,
Should
what
I
I'm trying
say
to
this?
highlight,
Cognitive skills are
yeah,
developed naturally. Actually,
so
it can be developed naturally. But for example, I can get tall naturally. I can, be fit, but I do exercises to ensure I'm stronger, I'm better, I'm
okay,
fit. If I'm fat and I want to reduce my weight, I do exercise for that. That is what
yeah.
cognitive training does for you. Okay.
Awesome. So I just wanted to point out that our involvement still is so important. If you check this YouTube channel, you're going to find one of our Tuesday live sessions that talks about improving your child's academics. Coach Wendy talked a lot around the responsibilities of parents. I'd really advise we check that session out. It was explosive. Thank you so much, love it. Do you have any
Okay.
last words, please?
Okay. I think I just want to say this to end this session. I want to say that don't forget, it's very important. If you feel that your child has issues with one or two things, forgetfulness, understanding of direction, giving, understanding of instruction, it's not the end. Because we said, and I want that should remain in your mind, learning capacities are not fixed. They can
Okay.
actually be developed. All you have to do is, like we will say, be intentional. Like Mrs. Wendy, the intentional parent, you just have to be intentional. Look at this. I want to address this for my child. I want to improve my child's cognitive skills. You have to ensure you get involved in cognitive training. And finally, I'm going to say this: we have our cognitive training program that is actually very effective. The result, actually, so far, scientifically, is four to in the space of 3 months of engagement with that tool in this for 3 to 4 days in a week. In the space of 3 months, your child's cognitive skills can be improved by 4 years. That is, there will be a 4 years improvement in your child's cognitive skills and cognitive ability. So you can always contact us at Energies on Instagram or on Facebook. Follow, like, and we chat us up. We're going to have answers to your questions there about how to get our cognitive training program. That's it.
All right. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Lovette. It was exciting
Thank you so
having
much,
you. Thank you so much,
Precious.
guys, for joining us. Remember that the course we're running presently, the Master Your Emotions Challenge, is on. It's for 2,499 naira. Send a chat to the number scrolling on your screen to enroll. It's a challenge like no other till we come your way next time. Thank you so much. Love it. Thank you, coach,
Thank
for
you
the
so
opportunity to
much.
learn better. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. Have a beautiful Sunday evening. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.